Welcome, everyone. I'm Katy Wallace. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and today we're talking about circadian rhythms and how they enhance health. This talk is for health education reasons only and should not take the place of medical advice. So we're talking about circadian rhythm today. Circadian rhythms are different changes, whether or not they're physical, mental, behavioral, that follow the 24-hour daily cycle. And there are many examples of daily circadian rhythms in humans. So our body temperatures undergo regular fluctuations that follow a clock, as do hormone levels, digestion, our gut biome, our sleep habits, our activity levels. You can see in this figure, which I took from Lumen, a company that focuses on how light and different types of light can influence physiology, that you'll see even things like alertness, coordination, blood pressure are all on a clock. So this clock, or actually there's multiple clocks, are controlled by a main clock called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So the SCN is a part of the brain that sends different signals to different parts of the body to regulate temperature or to regulate hormone levels. So you can think of this as like your brain's master clock that then determines the rest of the clocks that impact your health. So in addition to this, almost all the cells in our tissues and organs have a biological clock, just to undermine how important this is. And the suprachiasmatic nucleus coordinates all of these peripheral clocks through the viewing of light. So disruptions to the internal clock are well associated with a wide range of diseases and health issues. We know, for example, that night shift workers are much more prone to disease and health problems than people that follow a regular daily shift. This is just an excerpt from a medical study talking about how important the circadian rhythm really is for managing disease, because people that don't have healthy circadian rhythm are much more vulnerable. And the circadian rhythm, because it affects all of our cells, can really affect the biology of how we manage disease in many ways. One of my favorite researchers, and you can look him up, his name is Sachin Panda. He's got some TED Talks that are pretty interesting about circadian rhythm. And one of his bigger studies that he talks about is where they took different people from all different ranges of different food habits, night shift, day workers, healthy, unhealthy, and they had them follow a specific eating window where they stopped eating overnight. So no snacking at night, basically. And even if you're working at night, no eating at night for those people that were night shift workers in the study. And what he found was pretty mind-boggling. It didn't matter if people ate junk food or not. Everybody who restricted food to during the day and didn't eat within a few hours of going to bed got improvements. No matter what they ate, no matter what they did, if they stopped eating overnight, they got great, significant improvements in their health. And the markers that particularly improved that they were looking at were cholesterol, blood sugar, and reduced body fat. And of course, if you are at all into health, you know that these are tied to metabolic health, which underlies whether or not you have disease in all areas of your body. So this is really profound, I think, that consistent early eating window has such a big effect on people's biology. So basically, just not eating after dark helped people with their heart health and helped prevent being overweight and being obese, and prevented type 2 diabetes from developing. And so, there's a lot of reasons why this is so helpful, and it has to do with the fact that our digestive systems are not ready to receive food at the nighttime, and and particularly food that's hard to digest. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And a lot of things, a lot of reasons that the body is healthier is that it controls for inflammation to be fasting. for part of a 24-hour cycle, particularly at night. So that timing of the fasting with the daylight and the nighttime is very critical. Another key takeaway is something I talked about in my last live lecture, which was in the summer, the resistant starch lecture. So if you didn't see that, you can go back to my website and watch it. Resistant starches help feed butyrate producing bacteria or short chain fatty acid producing bacteria. And those are proving to be very critical part of gut health and critical in all areas of our health. So when you're not eating overnight, you allow the butyrate producing bacteria to multiply, and that has great implications for health overall. Here's a study where they talked about just this, restricted fasting window overnight and how it's so good for the gut biome. So if you're someone who struggles with digestive issues, dysbiosis in your gut, listen up. This is for you too. Last December, I gave a talk on the connection between the gut biome and cognitive health, and you can check out that video online too. And I talked particularly about this study where they found that these butyrates, these short chain fatty acids, which are gases produced in the gut by these good bacteria, they're implicated in our GI function, our blood pressure regulation, the regulation of the circadian rhythm itself and all of its benefits, which I'll be going into more detail about, our neuroimmune function, protecting us from cognitive decline and other neurological disorders. So really pretty interesting and profound effect just from doing things that help with this particular group of bacteria in the gut, one of those things being fasting overnight. Here's a study that just talked all about how fasting improves autophagy, which is the breakdown of unhealthy cells, and reduces inflammation and prevents neurodegeneration and cognitive decline. Here's Panda talking again about some of the takeaways from his other studies. He found that when people don't eat after dark, at least 3 hours, they had a huge reduction in GI issues like acid reflux. So consistently in their studies, people that did not eat 3 hours before bed got great improvements. So if you suffer from heartburn and acid reflux, this would be a great rule for you to follow too. Obviously, it's a good rule for everybody, but particularly in that case. A number of other studies have found that sunlight exposure has a big impact. So just one of the key takeaways I want you to get from this talk is that it's so important to be going outside during the day, and it's so important to be sleeping at night and kind of protecting yourself from a bright artificial light environment at night if you want to optimize health. One of the more interesting studies about the gut biome and sunlight took women, and they showed that women who used UV light to increase their vitamin D levels had a healthier and more diverse gut biome than the counterpart women in the study who just took a vitamin D supplement. So, of course, both groups got more vitamin D, one from the sun and one from a supplement, but the one from the sun had a much healthier gut biome. And that's because our biome needs the sunlight too. The bacteria in our gut have circadian rhythm, and they're going to be healthier when we're out in the sun. Furthermore, we know that having like a consistent bedtime, having a really good sleep cycle, and fasting during that window of time is really good for the gut biome.